It's September and I've had an increase in the number of people asking me for advice on the critical skills visa process for South Africa. And I thought to myself, when I was in this position last year, I could have really used a video that explained everything. And this is that video. So, number one, first thing you'll need is to make sure that you're actually on the guest list. So this guest list I'm talking about is the critical skills list. It is found on the DHA website, and if you go down to page something, you will find a list of all the critical skills that the government of South Africa is looking for. So if you studied something that falls within that list, or if your profession is within that list, then congrats, you qualify. Now, if your qualifications were not obtained in South Africa, the next thing you'll need to do is to get your skills evaluated by SAQA, South African Qualifications Authority. I actually don't know what that means. But anyways, you'll need to submit a list of documents to them, which I forgot off by heart, but my friend here is going to help you out with that. So you'll need to fill in an application form and then submit certified copies of your academic documents. So that's your degree certificate, your transcript, or whatever else goes along with your degree. Certified copy of your passport, your proof of payment of the application fee, and you need to also sign a consent form for the release of your personal information. Cool, thank you, James. Now, once you've got these documents, you're gonna mail them to SAQA. The address is there on their website, and it will take maybe like 4 weeks to process the whole application. Now, do yourself a favor and use a courier service like DHL or FedEx, because the postal service in South Africa is one, unreliable, and two, very slow. So that 4 weeks would turn into maybe 3 months. So yeah, you don't want that. Okay then, now you have your qualifications verified by SAQA. The next step is one of the most headache-inducing steps. Is that a thing? Yo. Anyways, you need to join a professional body. Now, this professional body, their task is to evaluate your skills and experience and make sure that you actually have enough work experience. Enough work experience. I don't know where I was going with that sentence. There's a list of SAQA certified professional bodies that I will link below. Look through that list for a professional body that's closest to your, to your profession. So for example, I studied electrical and computer engineering, so I can actually use at least three different professional bodies. The first one being obviously EXA, Engineering Council of South Africa, because of like the engineering part of my degree. And the other two I can also make use of are IITPSA and ICITP. They're both like IT type of thing, and I am in IT, so there's that. And these two bodies take maybe about 2 to 4 weeks to process your application. And then they'll give you the documents that you need to submit to wherever you're going to submit your thing. Now, other professional bodies can give you a headache. I didn't have a headache with, I used ICITP. They didn't give me a headache at all. 2 weeks, it was done and dusted, and I was moving on to the next step. But some bodies are notorious for being unnecessary. EXA is an example. So if your body is one of those, then you're just gonna have to soldier through, but you'll be fine. I mean, there's engineers with critical skills visa, so it's possible. It's just a headache. Okay, before we move on to the next step, for this step you'll need generally, each professional body has their own requirements, but generally you need to submit a CV and your qualifications, so like your degree or certifications or whatever. In most cases that's it, but like if you do some special profession like nursing or health related stuff like that, then you also need to submit extra documents like maybe like you need a permit from your home country, that kind of thing. It's unfortunate if you fall into one of those buckets, because it also means dealing with your own government in your own country, and where I come from, it's a horrible experience. So anyways, it's just like I said, this part of the process is a headache. The next thing, is a proof of financial means. Now, this is the one that gave me the most headaches, simply because of just the Zim's economic situation. I'll explain later. But basically, you need to prove to the government of South Africa that you will not be a burden on their public resources. And to do that, you have to submit a 3-month bank statement. And this bank statement, if it's in your name, then it needs to show a constant income. So a monthly income, or maybe it needs to show some income. And it needs to show activities like paying bills, paying for food, that kind of stuff. So it needs to be a checking account. I tried using a savings account, doesn't work. They won't accept it. They want a checking account, an account that shows those transactions. Now, the headache is usually caused by the next requirement, which is it must have at least 3,000 rands in it. It's very vague, but after a lot of research, what that means is it needs to have a rolling balance of 3,000 rands. It's hard to explain actually, but basically, essentially it means that the balance of your account, when you submit, should be above 3,000 rands, and you shouldn't have transactions that deplete your whole account. So you basically need to show that you have money. So this requirement will be very easy if you're rich, because you're always gonna have money. But if you're not, you're gonna have to save up for a couple months to show a healthy, or at least to simulate a healthy bank statement. If you come from Zim, or a country with a horrible economy like ours, then you will face an issue where no one in Zim keeps money in the banks. Why? There's no reason why you should be doing that. So people in Zimbabwe, like me, find it very hard to come up with such a bank statement. So what you can do is actually get somebody else's bank statement that looks good. So if you know South African who has a nice bank statement, or if you know a relative or your parents or whatever who have a good looking bank statement that that satisfies those requirements, then you can also use that one. But if you do submit a bank statement which doesn't have your name on it, then you need to make sure that you also submit that person's ID and a note, like an affidavit saying that they allow you to live off you for the duration of your visa. Now, I probably missed out a little bit of details there, so I'm gonna let my boy James finish off that one there.
Thank you. This is all on my blog, by the way, so you can always go to that blog, trying2adult.com, and you'll find all the information that you want on this process there. Anyways, you will need a certified copy of that person's ID or passport, a signed letter of undertaking, basically that person saying they will support you financially during your stay in South Africa. And lastly, if that person is not a South African and they stay in South Africa, then you'll also need to include a certified copy of the visa they're using to stay in South Africa. Or if they're on a permanent residency permit, then you also need to submit the ID book and the permanent residency certificate. Over to you, fam.
Okay then, thank you, fam. Now, the next step can also be quite a headache if you don't know anyone in South Africa, and that is proof of accommodation. So, like I said, they want to make sure that you're not a burden to South Africa, so you need to make sure that you have a place to live. This may be a breeze or not, but one thing you can do is, if you do know somebody in South Africa, then you can ask them for a utility bill or some sort of proof of residence. So it can be a bank statement or a rent invoice or something like that. And since it's most probably not going to be yours, then you also need to provide an affidavit or just a letter of them saying that you're going to live with them for a while, for the duration of your visa. Sorry, not for a while, for the duration of your visa. And what else? Actually, yeah, that's it. You just need a place to stay. So if you don't know anybody, then the next thing you need to do is to actually go on the internet and search for places to live. So you can try to look for a landlord who will sort out that part for you. But to be honest, I've never actually dealt with that that scenario, so it's very hard to give advice. Now, I probably should have said this in the beginning, but there's two different types of critical skills visas. The first one is a 1-year visa, and that's the visa you get. Oh my God, it's about to rain. Look at this. Ooh. Okay, it's hard to see, but that's rain right there. Anyways, I should be out of here soon. What was I talking about? Oh yes, there's two types of visas. So the first one is a 1-year visa, and this is the visa that you use if you don't have a job offer. So you use that 1 year to look for a job. Now, if you don't get a job, you will not be able to renew that visa. So like when you do get that visa, you need to make sure you get a job offer, because if you don't, you will never be able to get that visa, unless if you get a job offer, then you can apply for the second visa, which is a 5-year visa. And this visa is the visa you will use when you are applying with a job offer. So if you have a job offer, then you apply for the 5-year visa. And if you fall in this bucket, then the next step for you is to provide the documentation that proves that you actually do have a job. So you need an offer letter, the contract that you signed, and lastly that both you and the company signed. And the last thing is an indemnity form. No, sorry, it's a letter of, what's that word?
Undertaking. It's a letter of them accepting full responsibility to make sure you've got a valid visa, and if you ever need to be deported, they will make sure they'll pay for it.
And yeah, that's it really. That's pretty much it. Okay, I mean, there's lots of other little documents that you need, like police clearance from, actually yeah, this is kind of important. You need to provide a police clearance from every single country that you've been to, that you've stayed in for more than 12 months since you turned 18. For example, I grew up in Zim, so I need a police clearance from Zim. I studied in SA for 4 years, so I need a police clearance from South Africa. If you've been to another country for more than 12 months, you're gonna need to get a police clearance from that country. Now, if you need one from South Africa and you're not in South Africa, which is a common thing if you're a Zimbabwean and you studied here, then what you can do is travel to South Africa and get a police clearance. That's the easiest way. Then if you can't do that, then what you can do is get your fingerprints taken at a local police station and then email those to somebody you know of in SA who's gonna then submit it for you. If you can't do that, then you have the last option, which is there's an online process. Like there's a process for foreign nationals who want to get South African police clearances. I will link an article to something that talks about that somewhere there. So yeah, but when you're done, then you submit. If your country has a VFS center, then you need to submit at your nearest VFS center. If your country does not have a VFS center, then you can submit at the nearest embassy. So if the embassy is not in your country, you're gonna have to travel to submit your visa application. And the waiting period, yeah, this one is really sad. This is probably the most frustrating part. But I mean, if you got to this stage, then the hard part is done. It's not just waiting. Anyways, in most non-African countries, it'll probably take you like 3 weeks. I know Brazilians I work with, they got their visa after like 2 weeks. So it's pretty fast. But if you live in an African country like Zimbabwe, it will take at least 4 months to come out. I got it took at least exactly 14 weeks. But I left the country, and I know people I applied with that got their visa after 5 months, 6 months, and some were rejected after 8 months. That's just rude. And the worst part is they confiscate your passport during the process. So you're stuck for those 4 or whatever months that you're in. And yeah, it's very unfortunate actually. But I mean, if it does come out, it's worth it. It's worth it. Maybe you can join me in Cape Town here, because you can see it's a very beautiful place. And it's raining now. Okay, I should probably go home. Anyways, that's the process. I do hope it's a bit clearer now. It's not very straightforward, but all the best.